back to another episode of Monday Mindfulness. So for today's episode, I'm returning back to the subject that my first Monday Mindfulness is on, which is the idea of giving up alcohol or really reducing alcohol consumption. So just to give a brief introduction, if you are new to my channel, hello, my name is Lesley. Thank you so much for joining me. This is my Monday Mindfulness playlist where I have been discussing mental health topics on a Monday, and then my Thursday content is fashion and lifestyle, which I upload at 7 o'clock every Thursday. So I also wanted to give some context to my own personal journey with alcohol. It was about, it's towards the end of last year, I had this, I'm going to call it an epiphany, a sudden aha moment when I realised that actually the way I was drinking was really not helpful for me whatsoever. It was definitely affecting my anxiety, it was really exasperating it, and I have basically been working on changing my relationship with alcohol to the point where I'm not really drinking anymore apart from occasional celebratory glasses or moments where I really feel that I am being mindful and present about it. So I thought I would share my 10 tips for reducing or giving up alcohol throughout this video. I thought this was quite a timely moment to do this video, as I know a lot of people tend to start the new year with new goals, new aims. We've also got dry January, and December does tend to be the month that we all overdo things a little bit. So I just thought this was a good time to upload this and yeah, hopefully give some helpful tips about reducing or giving up alcohol. I would say the tips in this video are more aimed to really either giving up alcohol completely or reducing it quite drastically. This is maybe more useful if you are looking to make an overall lifestyle change that goes beyond dry January and through into February and the rest of the year. So without much further ado, let's just get started on the video. So tip number 1. I think this is probably the most important in really cementing an overall change. And the tip is basically you have to make this new decision a priority. It has to be kind of the most important thing that you are doing at that point in your life. That maybe sounds a bit dramatic, but if you're looking to really overhaul your lifestyle, so that's kind of what I went through. So I was someone that was drinking every weekend, every Friday and Saturday night, and I do think it was kind of exacerbated by the pandemic. And I just really got in this routine of, it wasn't even a question that I would drink on a Friday night or a Saturday night. Like, there was just no alternative. So I really had to think, when I was making this change, this is the most important thing. This is a priority. And it can also be quite helpful for any decisions that you are trying to make, to use that as a benchmark. So I watched a video where the girl was talking about her journey with alcohol, and she said, every decision I was making, I asked myself, is this getting me closer to my goal of being the person that I want to be without alcohol, or is it taking me further away from that goal? So that could be attending, you know, a big night out, or attending some event where there's going to be a lot of alcohol flowing. Do you know what I mean? It's basically using that as a benchmark and really saying to yourself, this is the most important thing that I'm doing right now, and kind of just making sure each decision aligns with this new lifestyle change. Because let's be honest, doing something like giving up alcohol and going against the grain is definitely not easy. And I can speak for myself and my own society and the culture in Glasgow. You know, I'm Scottish, drinking culture is massive here. It's just unheard of, really, that you would go to the pub purely for the ambience and the conversation. So I totally get that it can feel really radical, and yeah, it's just different. Obviously different cultures, different societies will have a different view on that, but where I'm from, drinking is very normal and heavy drinking is normal. So I do understand that it's definitely not an easy decision to make. So to further this point, I guess what I'm trying to say is you do have to be ready to really commit to making this change. And that's not to say that you can't still start and try, but I think I knew when I was making this change, I was like, this feels really, I don't want to say final, because I'm not saying that I will never drink alcohol, And that's not my goal to never ever drink, but it felt a really final shift. I was moving away from, I guess there was a phrase that I kept repeating, which was that I'm changing the narrative. I was changing the narrative on my drinking. And another quote that I read from a book was that you're kind of shedding a version of yourself. I was shedding that version of myself into a newer version who consumed less alcohol. So my second tip, and this is one that really helped me, which was basically to use resources, educate myself, and use knowledge as a way of confirming this decision. So what I mean by that is I literally just consumed as much material on the subject as I possibly could. So I was watching YouTube videos, maybe like this one, or of women, men all around the world who decided to make this change. I was watching their journeys, watching their stories, watching them talk about it. I was listening to podcasts, I was reading books, I was watching documentaries. I really threw myself into this new world of being kind of sober curious, understanding the world of sobriety, and having it really change my mindset. And it is interesting when you start looking into it, you realize how normalized drinking is, and how actually we don't, as a society, don't really admit that there are so many negatives to alcohol that we just kind of gloss over. So that is definitely, I probably would say, was one of the most important things that I did, was really understanding the world of alcohol. And this, I am absolutely not alcohol bashing. I still think alcohol can have its place, and I'm definitely not trying to be critical or anything like that. It's just, I think it's just when you're so used to it, and I've definitely grown up around alcohol, people drinking, and yeah, it's just, there's an awful lot of information out there that actually, once I realised, it just made sense to me. It was further feeding this curiosity that I had. So I thought I would also just specifically mention some resources that I have read. So I've got some books here. So the first one I read was The Sober Diaries, which I actually have left at my dad's house, but I'll include a picture of it here. And I would say this was a really helpful and kind of gentle easing into some of the literature on this subject, because I will say the one that I've just been finishing reading, it has been slightly grittier, and it's weird, the order that I read the books did seem to be increasing in grittiness. So I felt like The Sober Diaries it had comedy, it was relatable, it was a more comfortable read than some of the other ones. So that was the first one, The Sober Diaries. The next one that I read was The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober by Catherine Gray. So she has also got another book, which I haven't read. I think it's called Sunshine, Warm, Sober, which is a kind of, I don't know if paradox is the word, against being stone cold sober. And the connotations of being stone cold sober are, kind of like dull and boring and serious and judgmental. And so she's trying to change that narrative. So The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober, I would say this was similar in the lines of The Sober Diaries, but slightly more deep into her experience with alcohol and some of the really problematic situations that she's ended up in. This one here, I haven't read this one, but I listened to the podcast that Millie did on the I forgot the name of it. The Sober Club, which is a podcast, so I will link that as well. I will try and link as much as I can in the description box. So I haven't read this one, but I think this is quite good for if you are maybe in your sort of student days, or maybe like 20s. I don't know whether I'm kind of at the older end of the scale of this one, but some of the reviews did say that it's more targeted at a younger group, but I can report back once I've read this one. And the final one is this one here, Glorious Rock Bottom by Bryony Gordon. And I will say, she does say at the start of the book that, I think it's in the preface, it might not always be easy to read, and I would kind of agree with that. I did find this one a little more difficult to read because there were some chapters that it felt very raw. It felt very... She actually talks about her journey through rehab in this one. I would just say, if you are looking to read any of these books, I wouldn't maybe start with this one, just because it can be a little bit jarring and kind of, yeah, you maybe have to be in a certain mind space to read this one. It's not to say that I didn't still think it was like really valuable, and I appreciated, reading her story. It was slightly heavier than the other ones that I've mentioned. So in terms of other resources, I mentioned the podcast, which is Janie Lee Grace. It is the Sober Club Alcohol Free Life podcast. I just want to make sure I get the name right. And there's literally, I think there's 163 episodes. I've definitely not listened to them all, but I've listened to some of the ones that I recognised the guests. So Catherine Gray has been on the podcast. She's had various guests from sort of sober adult drinks, like non-alcoholic adult drinks on. So I definitely recommend that if you like a podcast. I'm sure there are different ones, but this is the only one that I've personally listened to so far. I also really enjoyed watching Adrian Chiles' documentary, which I found on YouTube. I can't remember the name of it. Sorry, probably like she can't remember the name of anything. I will link it in the description box. But his documentary was, again, quite hard-hitting, where he spoke to different people about their sort of alcohol habits, but he also really shed a light on the alcohol industry and how, if you think about it, if you look at a packet of cigarettes, how many warnings, how many kind of scary images or like frightening language is put on the cigarette box, and then there's just none of that on alcohol, and actually the effects can just be as harmful. So it's things like that he discusses in the documentary. So I would definitely recommend that if you're looking for kind of a practical approach to this. I think that's kind of the resources that I've personally used, but I definitely would really recommend, if you're watching this video, hopefully that you have already started, but even on YouTube, just searching giving up alcohol, and you'll find so many stories. People are being really open, real and honest and talking about their journeys, and I found it really helpful and really comforting to know that I was not the only one that had realised that alcohol was actually a negative. And one of the reasons that I'm kind of doing this new playlist is to just join the movement in taking away any shame or embarrassment on certain topics. So one of them being the topic of alcohol, because I think immediately people feel this shame, and I certainly felt it. I was a bit like, oh gosh, I don't want people to think that I've been secretly drinking in the morning, and I've been hiding away this problematic lifestyle only because I'm now talking about the negatives of alcohol. Whereas if you think of it, if you compare it to something else, if I said to Jack, like, say it was like pasta, sometimes I eat pasta, sometimes I don't. Like, why is it so different with alcohol? If I decided to say sometimes I might have a drink, but sometimes I don't, it's just, sorry, I'm probably rambling now, but you know what I mean? For some reason, alcohol is in a different category. It carries more shame, it carries more weight. It's going against the norm that we kind of know. So that is my second tip, which is to use knowledge and resources to help build up this, I guess, wealth of evidence as to why this is a good decision to take. So tip number 3, this might not be for everyone. You have to definitely look at your own situation and work out what is best for you. But I would definitely recommend talking to someone about your new decision when it feels right. So I had this moment where I was sitting in my flat and I just thought, I think this is right. So I think the first person I texted was my sister, and she was just like, okay, like, not, you want to tell someone that is not going to be like, okay, what? Or or okay, or like brush it off. You want to be really thoughtful about who could you talk to that is going to support this decision, is going to listen, and is going to encourage you. So that's what I mean by being careful about who you tell, because you might have some friends that absolutely love going out, love drinking, and maybe that's the basis of your friendship. Maybe that's not the group to start off telling, because they might not think you are serious. So I think if you can tell someone, the reason I think it's a good idea is because it puts it out there into the world, and it gives you that sense of accountability. You've told someone that you are taking steps to do this, and they can, if they are able or willing, they can also help hold you accountable. And I did say to my sister, I was like, would it be okay if I texted you if I was at a point where I felt like, this was at the start when I was really deciding like I'm just not drinking at the minute, I'm just not at all. And I said, would it be okay if I texted you if I'm feeling uncomfortable in a situation where I am now tempted, and I just to sort of have that check, like, is this definitely what I want to do? So she was like, yeah, of course. So I think if you've got someone that would be willing to offer you that, then I would recommend telling them. I also wanted to say, if you wanted to message me and say I'm going to, either reduce alcohol or stop drinking, definitely feel free to message me on Instagram, or I think you can direct message on YouTube. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure how you do it, but please feel free to message me. And even just to, as I said, to put it out there in the universe, like I would definitely just listen and accept that and encourage you to make decisions for what feels right for you. So that would be my third tip, is to slowly but surely maybe build on the group that you have told, so that then it becomes just kind of normal and accepted that you don't really drink anymore, or you just don't drink. So the next couple of tips are kind of going back to the mindset idea. So tip number 4 is, don't make it too big. Don't make your goal sound absolutely impossible and totally extreme. So you may need to seek guidance on this, so please do speak to maybe your doctor or a therapist, just deciding what is right for you. But I would say, for me personally, it wasn't helpful for me to sort of think, I will never drink alcohol again. That was not really something that I could wrap my head around. So when I first kind of made the decision, I did have this idea of, I guess, like at least a month to 2 months to 3 months kind of. I didn't actually pick a number and say, but it that's totally up to you. You might find it easier to say 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or you might just find it easier to wake up each day and think to yourself, I'm not going to drink today, and take it day by day. And I definitely have kind of used a combination of both. I knew that this was going to be, it wasn't going to be like 1 week or 2 weeks, it's going to be like a month or two. But I also did definitely feel comfort in the idea of, we're just taking a day at a time. And I have watched other videos where people have literally said, even breaking it further down into just like the morning or the afternoon or the evening. So you're actually segmenting it if you are finding it maybe more challenging. So I think, yeah, overall, just don't make it too big a goal. Don't turn it into the biggest thing in the world. Just break it down to literally, it's just one day at a time. And following on from that, tip number 5 is basically change one thing at a time in your lifestyle. So I feel like sometimes we get these ideas. I mean, I've certainly been there, where you're like, right, that is it. I'm going to be going to the gym 3 times a week. I'm going to be only drinking kale smoothies. I'm not going to be eating chocolate. I'm not going to be drinking. I'm not going to spend any money. I'm going to do this. I'm going to, we have these ideas. We're like, yes, I can do all of this. And then actually what happens is you just, sorry, I got cut off there. But basically, yeah, don't try and do too much all at once. You just want to try and focus on one area. And I kind of just was like, well, I'll deal with everything else afterwards. And this kind of goes back to the first tip, which was to make it a priority. So I would say put this above, if this is truly your goal, put it above, going to the gym or starting a new diet or whatever else you are trying to achieve. I think this is quite enough to be getting on with at the minute. So that would be tip number 5. Moving into the next couple of tips, these are back to more practical tips. So tip number, what are we on, 6? So tip number 6 is to use an app, or maybe even just like a journal, to kind of document it, or just help with documenting your progress. So I really found using an app helpful at the start, because I just was in a very kind of fragile mindset with the whole thing, and I like the idea that each day I could make a pledge and say, right, today I'm not going to drink, and at the end of the day you reviewed your day. And at the start I was quite anxious and I was quite emotional about the whole thing, so I found it helpful to be able to kind of, at the end of each day, recap and just review the day. So the app that I used, I think, is literally just called like Sober or something. Sorry, let me just double check. I Am Sober. It's called I Am Sober. And I know, like, not everyone might feel that they actually want to use an app like that, because I get it can kind of be daunting, because it brings up this question like, oh my goodness, do I have a problem with alcohol, or what does this mean? I have been there myself. All I would say is that I recognise that alcohol was not helpful, or actually that healthy for me to be having on a regular basis. So I didn't need to define it any more than that. So you can use these sorts of apps, absolutely anyone could use them, but I do get you might not feel comfortable doing that, so you could definitely just do your own little self-review in a little notebook what I've actually been doing, which is another topic, practicing gratitude. I have a little notebook in my bedside cabinet where at the end of each day I'm trying to write down some things that I'm grateful for. So you could definitely do the same thing with alcohol, you know, say, right, that's me, another day done. What did I notice about today? Did I find anything difficult, anything challenging? What I will say was good about the app, it was it asked you to really quickly fill in each day. It literally had like emojis of your emotions. So at the start, like all of mine were like the crying or the sad ones. And then like what were you doing that day? Was it work, family? So you can actually begin to see patterns as well, you know, the longer you do it. I'm not currently still filling in each day, but I still have the app, and I like to use it. If I just like to have that it's there. It gives you little notifications and celebrations when you reach certain milestones, and I actually really did find it very satisfying to look and say, oh my goodness, like it's been 40 days since I've had a drink. I'll be back. Sorry about that. Okay, moving into tip number 7. This is one that I found definitely quite helpful at the start, which is basically to look for drink alternatives. I think we can all relate to that feeling where, the weekend's coming, maybe Friday night's approaching, and normally I definitely would have sat and had a glass of wine or a cocktail or something. So just to kind of replace or mimic that, and again, this might not be for everyone, so do take guidance on this, but I personally quite liked at the start, I bought like some premium pink lemonade and put it in a nice glass, and I still had this feeling of I'm relaxing. It's now Friday night, I'm having a moment of just winding down, and you can definitely have that same feeling without the alcohol. So yeah, pink lemonade, or I have actually been trying a variety of non-alcohol like wine, or I've reviewed the Bell & Co sparkling one, which I honestly really liked, and I even shared some with my dad at one point, and he really does not like anything that is too sweet. He literally won't even drink Prosecco. He likes champagne because he likes the sort of drier taste, and he like had a glass or two with me. So I would recommend the Bell & Co one. It's literally £3 from Amazon, but definitely for social events, I think it is really helpful at the start to have something that looks and feels the same, and just so you might not feel as out of place. Because I did feel a little bit like that. On a couple of occasions, I would have felt worse or more, just more uneasy had I just been having like a Diet Coke or something so obvious, whereas having something that looks the same, I think is helpful. And yeah, it can help just bring that little bit of, ooh, it's Friday night or it's Saturday night. Moving into tip number 8, this is one that I definitely enjoyed, which is basically to just give yourself little treats or rewards along the way. So it can be something as simple as literally having a hot chocolate. I really enjoyed hot chocolates kind of on the run up to Christmas. Even little milestone goals, so maybe you buy a new book at 3 weeks, or little things like that. I've kind of stopped doing it now, but at the start I found that was just a little bit easier. So I remember ordering a candle when I think it was like 2 weeks or 3 weeks in. So little things like that it just helps give you that boost. Again, that might not be for everyone, that might just bring more complications, but for me I found that helpful. Just little ways of rewarding yourself, because one thing I definitely struggled with at one point was, what have I got to look forward to? Like I definitely got stuck in this sort of doer negative mindset of like there is nothing to look forward to. I was thinking about a glass of champagne at the weekend. I was like, that would be so lovely. But in actual fact, you do get past that, and one way of doing it is maybe by just rewarding yourself a little bit, and instead of, waking up with a headache or feeling hungover or still in bed on a Sunday morning, you can get up, read your new book, or enjoy an evening lighting your new candle, or indeed enjoying a lovely hot chocolate with cream and marshmallows. And yeah, you can think about how much you've achieved already. So tip number 9 is kind of going back to the mindset idea again, and this is basically, this can be a little bit difficult to get your head around, but basically if you are seriously making this commitment of either stopping drinking or reducing it, you need to try and think of what am I gaining versus what am I giving up. Because I've done dry January before, and all I've thought about is what am I giving up and when will I have a drink again, and oh, this is so miserable, you know, you're counting the days down till you then have a drink again. So absolutely nothing has changed. It's just, you've just taken a 1 month break. Whereas this time, it was flipped. I was actually counting the days that I was getting under my belt of this new lifestyle change. And I was looking at all the things I have gained. So if you are at the start of a journey and you would like some motivation, I do have a video on the things that I noticed when I stopped drinking for 30 days. I will link it here, but I also want to just give a quick recap of the things you can look forward to. So I've already mentioned waking up feeling fresh, no anxiety, no physical symptoms like a headache or just feeling sick or nauseous, like no hangovers, none. So basically there's a saying that you get your Sunday mornings back when you give up alcohol, and that is definitely true. So waking up fresh, that is an amazing feeling. There's honestly so many benefits. So from saving money, you will feel healthier both mentally and physically. You might lose weight, you might just feel a little bit, you will just feel healthier. You'll have more energy, you'll have more positive mindset. There really are so many benefits. I think when you're making this choice, you have to think this is what I'm going for. So, you know, things like country walks or even walks in, you know, different parks or things like that you've got to look forward to at the weekend instead of being hungover and, you know, lying on the couch all day. So that to me was actually really crucial to think that what am I gaining? I am gaining a new lifestyle that I love. I'm gaining a version of myself that I feel much happier with, more comfortable with. And I'm actually not giving up anything. And if there is anything that is being, you know, lost from this, it is actually something that I didn't really want in the first place. So, and I will also say just quickly on this note is that what I've definitely noticed is the longer that I have continued down this path on being on that mindset, the less I actually think about alcohol and the less I actually want it. So there's definitely truth in the saying that the less you have something, the less you want it. I really found that to be true. So I'm going to move into the final tip number 10. And I will say about this one is more for those who are wanting to still drink alcohol on occasions and are not, you know, ruling it out completely. So if you are someone that is cutting alcohol completely out, I would suggest skipping to the end of the video. I'll timestamp it here because the final tip is to drink mindfully or practice mindful drinking. So you might be thinking, what does that actually mean? And it's something that I am still looking to research myself, but I have done a little bit of reading on mindful eating, so it's kind of along the same lines. And it's basically, if you're choosing to have a drink, an alcoholic drink, you are totally mindful in that moment. You have made a mindful decision. You have said, I think tasting this is going to enhance whatever experience I'm having. So whether you're in a gorgeous bar or a beautiful setting where you think this will truly add to this moment. So that's the first thing, is you've made a mindful decision, and it's typically going to be that first one. But this is where you have to just be conscious of it's one, or it's none, or it's a specific amount. And so I think just be careful on this one. But you've mindfully made a choice that it feels right, you feel comfortable with this decision, you're going to have something to drink. And then once you've actually got it, the next step is to pay attention to it, to actually admire it. So this might sound a little bit intense, but this is actually me going back to the videos that when I very first started this channel, I was doing champagne tasting videos, which I know is a little bit ironic, or very ironic, but I was attempting to bring that mindful drinking aspect. So, I mean, I've got a cup of tea here, let's pretend this is something else. So first of all, you can look at whatever it is. So if we said it was a glass of champagne, look at physically how is it structured, what is the colour like, what are the bubbles looking like, and then you might want to nose the alcohol and notice the scents that you're picking up on, even giving it a swirl around the glass to help release that aroma gently, because we don't want to lose too many of the bubbles, and then maybe slowly taking a sip and just being truly present and thoughtful about what you are doing. So some tips on this, I would say, is more difficult in a social setting. Personally, I find that you're not really going to sit and do all of that in a social setting. So this is maybe best practice when you're with someone who is also enjoying the taste of the alcohol. So, and this is a key factor of it, is you are drinking this alcohol for the taste and nothing else. You're not drinking it for the feeling it gives you. You are not drinking it to escape from anxious thoughts. You are not drinking it to block out anything else. You are drinking it to appreciate it for what it is. So this is where I do feel, although it's a bit of an odd combination, I do feel like I can still appreciate champagne for what it is without necessarily drinking it regularly or very much at all, because there's craftsmanship there, there's history, and I think if you think of it like that, it is different from just, you know, mindlessly drinking. So I hope that makes sense, but it's all about taking this moment and you are really in the moment and paying attention to what you are doing. This is something I could definitely follow up on if you are interested, but I'm kind of just going to round off this video, I think, and yeah, finish off. So I really hope that you found this video in any way helpful. It's one of those ones that there might be some tips that resonate with you, there might be some that absolutely do not, so hopefully you can pick and choose and take what you want and leave the rest, because it's a very personal subject as well, but I just wanted to be part of the movement that is talking about this, hopefully helping anyone that is looking to make this change. And as I said before, please leave me any comments or send me any messages about this subject, because I really want to be more open about it, and it should be totally normal to just look at your relationship with alcohol and possibly make changes or just even be aware of it. So thank you so much for watching. Please do give the video a thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to see more Monday Mindfulness. But do take care, everyone, and let me know how you're getting on if you have decided to make this choice. But thank you so much. I will see you again for another Monday Mindfulness. Bye!